Let us look at demand. A desire becomes demand only when a consumer has both the purchasing power and the willingness to spend money to buy a product. The price of a product can vary. Quantity demanded refers to the specific quantity of a product that a consumer is willing and able to buy at a specific price. Let us look at an individual demand schedule. It shows the quantities of a product that an individual consumer will buy at different possible prices of that product. For example, consider the following table. When the price of good X is 1 rupee, the quantity demanded is 4 units. When the price is 2 rupees, the quantity demanded is 3 units. When the price is 3 rupees, the quantity demanded is 2 units. And when the price is 4 rupees, the quantity demanded is 1 unit. Now, let us look at a market demand schedule. It shows the total quantity of a commodity demanded by all consumers in the market at different possible prices. Consider two consumers, consumer A and consumer B. When the price is 1 rupee, consumer A demands 4 units and consumer B demands 5 units. Therefore, the market demand is 9 units. When the price is 2 rupees, the market demand is 7 units. When the price is 3 rupees, the market demand is 5 units. And when the price is 4 rupees, the market demand is 3 units. In both cases, we can see an inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded. As the price of the product increases, the quantity demanded decreases. Similarly, as the price decreases, the quantity demanded increases. Let us now look at the individual demand curve and the market demand curve. These are the respective demand schedules represented in the form of graphs. The individual demand curve shows the quantity demanded by an individual consumer at different prices. The market demand curve shows the total quantity demanded by all consumers in the market at different prices. Now, let us look at the slope of the demand curve. A demand curve normally slopes downward from left to right. This indicates a negative or inverse relationship between the price of a commodity and its quantity demanded. When the price increases, the quantity demanded decreases. When the price decreases, the quantity demanded increases. The slope of the demand curve is the ratio of the change in price to the corresponding change in quantity demanded. Therefore, the slope is equal to delta P divided by delta Q. Here, delta P represents the change in price, and delta Q represents the change in quantity demanded. Let us now look at the demand function. A demand function shows the relationship between the quantity demanded of a commodity and the factors that determine its demand. For example, the demand for apples may depend on the price of apples, the consumer's income, the price of related goods, tastes and preferences, and expectations about future prices. The demand function can therefore be written as QDX is a function of PX, PR, Y, T, and E. Here, QDX represents the quantity demanded of good X. PX represents the price of good X. PR represents the price of related goods. Y represents the income of the consumer. T represents tastes and preferences. And E represents expectations about the future. An individual demand function shows the relationship between the quantity demanded of a commodity by an individual consumer and the factors affecting that consumer's demand. For example, the number of apples purchased by Rahul may depend on the price of apples, Rahul's income, the price of related fruits, and Rahul's preferences. If we consider only the price of apples and keep all other factors constant, then QDX is a function of PX. This gives us the individual demand curve. The graph has price on the y-axis and quantity demanded on the x-axis. Let us now look at the price of related goods. The demand for a commodity can be affected not only by its own price, but also by the prices of other goods related to it. Related goods can be broadly classified into substitute goods and complementary goods. Let us first look at substitute goods. Substitute goods are goods that can be used in place of each other. Examples include tea and coffee, Pepsi and Coke, and ball pens and ink pens. Let us take tea and coffee as an example. Suppose the price of coffee increases, while the price of tea remains unchanged. Coffee becomes relatively more expensive. Therefore, some consumers may switch from coffee to tea. As a result, the demand for tea increases, even though the price of tea has not changed. Therefore, in the case of substitute goods, the price of one good and the demand for the other good move in the same direction. Now, let us look at complementary goods. Complementary goods are goods that are normally used or consumed together. Examples include pen and ink, bread and butter, and car and petrol. Let us take cars and petrol as an example. Suppose the price of cars increases significantly. As cars become more expensive, the quantity demanded for cars may decrease. Since fewer cars are purchased, the demand for petrol may also decrease, even though the price of petrol has not changed. Therefore, in the case of complementary goods, the price of one good and the demand for the other good move in opposite directions. Now, let us classify goods according to how their demand responds to changes in income. A normal good is a good whose demand increases when the consumer's income increases, other things remaining constant. For example, when a family's income increases, it may purchase more branded clothing, better quality food, or other goods it prefers. Therefore, income increases, demand for a normal good increases. An inferior good is a good whose demand decreases when the consumer's income increases. For example, suppose a consumer regularly travels by an ordinary bus because of limited income. After the consumer's income increases, they may use taxis more frequently and reduce their use of ordinary buses. In this example, ordinary bus travel behaves as an inferior good for that consumer. Therefore, income increases, demand for an inferior good decreases. It is important to understand that the word inferior does not necessarily mean poor quality. It describes how demand for the good responds to a change in consumer income. Market demand function. Let us now look at the market demand function. A market demand function shows the relationship between the total quantity demanded by all consumers in a market and the factors affecting market demand. The market demand function can be written as market dx is equal to a function of px, pr, y, t, e, n, and yd. Here, market dx represents the market demand for commodity x. Px represents the price of commodity x. PR represents the price of related goods. Y represents the income of consumers. T represents the tastes and preferences of consumers. E represents the expectations of consumers. N represents the population size, or number of buyers. And YD represents the distribution of income. Market demand is obtained by adding the quantities demanded by individual consumers at the same price. For example, suppose at a price of 10 rupees, consumer A demands 3 apples and consumer B demands 5 apples. The market demand is 3 plus 5, which is equal to 8 apples. Thus, a market demand curve is obtained by horizontally adding the individual demand curves. Now, let us look at 2 factors that specifically affect market demand. First is the population size, or number of buyers. As the number of buyers increases, market demand generally increases. Second is the distribution of income. Market demand is also influenced by how income is distributed among people in society. If income is more equally distributed, market demand for many commonly consumed goods tends to be higher. If income is highly unequally distributed, market demand for such goods may be lower.